Hello everyone. Today we are interviewing Francesc Gòdia, full professor at Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona and manager of the MELiSSA pilot plant. Dear Francesc, what is MELiSSA?
Well, MELiSSA is a consortium and is a project of the led by the European Space Agency, and basically is developing technology for life support for humans in long duration missions in space.
And when did you decide to work on this project? What were your biggest motivations?
Well, in fact, this project started almost 30 some years ago. And by that time, ESA was sort of trying to aggregate different uh, groups with different background to 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 to, to make that consortium. and and we were, by also collaborating with the company, we became invited to participate in the consortium, and it was certainly very attractive to us, because at the end, to develop such a system of life support in space, MELiSSA is proposing bioregenerative systems. These bioregenerative systems are in fact composed by a series of compartments. Each compartment, it has a biological reaction. It implies a bioreactor providing that specific function within a full loop of bioregenerative life support. And since at that time we were already working in bioreactor design, operation, control, etc., it was very attractive to us to participate.
And considering that the whole thing is quite complicated, what have been the biggest challenges with the project?
Well, within the project, that basically the project, it tries to conceive a system which is uh, circular in from the inception, where you try to provide food uh, uh, in that loop, to regenerate water, to regenerate the atmosphere. And since you want to do this system in in low needs to be supported from Earth, you use the wastes of the tripulation of the crew in order to close the cycle, yeah, and make wastes as a resource, uh, and all that system that, as you said, is very complex. Also, then you need to operate it in continuous mode in long term. So, because of this complexity, we end up creating the what we call the MELiSSA pilot plan, and this is in fact the responsibility we have in the group within the MELiSSA consortium, the group working at UAB, at Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona, is in charge of the MELiSSA pilot plan. And this has been a very big challenge, yeah? Because it means you have to design all these pilot plant reactors. You have to make that those that they work in arsenic conditions, that they do not get contaminated. You have then an area of the pilot plant is working as a clean room area with almost pharmaceutical category or pharmaceutical quality constraints. Uh, the experiments are they have a duration of maybe 1 year, maybe 1 year and a half. So all this makes the whole system complex. We have a lot of instrumentation to maintain and to rely on it for the experiments. Also, you need to coordinate a group of technical people that they are doing the job. including vacation, including Christmas, wherever. So it's a little bit all this. It's indeed complex, but it's also very nice to do it.
And well, what are your perspective of these technologies helping in the development of future space missions?
Yeah, well, indeed, for us, the perspective is that in the next, let's say, 5, 6 years, I think we will be at a point where we will be able to have demonstrate the feasibility of such a close environmental control system, and its operation under controlled conditions. In parallel, part of the consortium is also demonstrating the operation of some elements of the MELiSSA loop at the in the ISS, so in a space conditions. So all these will already bring us in a point where we will have been demonstrated uh, very strongly the proof of concept of the system and the subsystems and the methodology used. And we think that we will be certainly at a position to increase our TRL level and to offer part of the approach, part of the systemic approach to the systems, uh, to offer it to any mission that is being in the plans of the space agencies. Yeah, and this is in at the end the goal. Yeah, that at some point you have the demonstration developed and demonstrate. You do that on Earth. You test the concept in the ISS, but then you should uh, uh, introduce, or you should use or adopt these technologies into the final mission scenarios in the space exploration.
Yes, indeed. And you were mentioning that you're working in a publicly funded project. And considering the whole situation with the current space race between Amazon and Virgin Airlines and everything, um, do you see a clashing point between private and publicly funded projects regarding biotech and space? And what do you think that are the major differences between them?
Okay, so that is a little bit of a difficult question. Yeah, I should say that in the one side, from the if we start by the public funded projects, we should consider that this public funding goes from many years ago, goes both to public research organizations, but also to private companies. So for example, in MELiSSA, we have a number of private companies that they are contributing to their specific expertise, say in instrumentation, control, whatever. And this is also the case in many of the European consortiums and the European projects, etc. When then we go into the hardware for space, say ISS, or say some of the vehicles in space, etc., is also the case. Yeah, the most of the agencies, they are working quite close with the private sector, and there are companies like Boeing, like Sierra Nevada, SpaceX, etc., that they have partnered and contributed to the national agencies, NASA, ESA, etc., in very close collaboration. And I think that nobody has any doubt that the exploration missions in a space, say, if you imagine a human mission to explore Mars, it will be first international collaboration implied in it, and also it will be a collaboration between the public and the private sector. This is the second part of the answer, yeah? The third part, then, which is what we are seeing more recently, is the use or the exploitation of a space or the design of some space activities purely on a commercial private basis, yeah, which is the recently the Virgin space and etc. What has been called the space tourism, etc. Well, this falls in the more of a private in a private space, in a private domain, and I think that there everyone can have different personal opinions on this, yeah, on even the fact to what extent it is substantial for the humanity or necessary for the human beings to get into these activities. But this is an answer, is a question that you can ask yourself to many human activities on Earth. No, do you find interesting the commercialization of sailing that represents cruise boats? Yeah, so everybody can have an opinion on that. Yeah, I think that for me, where the point where I have an opinion in answering your question is in the first and in the second part. And the first and the second part is pretty obvious. We need close collaboration between private and public sector to develop the technologies and then to really to go further and define and execute the missions in space.
Yes, indeed. I mean, it's very important to have a good relationship between the public and the private sectors to develop bigger projects like this one. And considering the European Space Agency, what are they working on in terms of biotechnology?
Well, I think that ESA has several programs in biotechnology because, as you know, it's not only life support, but it's also how microgravity can affect a number of aspects in biology, and this goes all over from plant growth to all the way protein crystallization. Uh, the culture of cells, including human cells, tissue generation under microgravity, understanding how basically understanding how microgravity or the absence of the gravity vector uh, applies or affects biological systems. Then, of course, there is a lot of associated technologies. As you can imagine, for example, ISS has developed quite sophisticated systems for the monitoring of potential contaminations, bacterial contaminations in the ISS. Well, and in fact, particularly within the ISS, there is a rack that is one of the European racks, in fact, is for experiments of biology in space. Yeah, so I would say that that ESA has developed quite a good understanding and effort in what is this interface between biology and space.
Yes, I guess everything related to that is good news for biotechnology, which is always positive.
Mhm.
And just as the last question, I mean, considering the best parts of MELiSSA, do you think that this technology or similar biotechnological solutions can be used on Earth too? Because I mean, we are seeing that climate change is affecting society as a whole, and yeah, I mean, I guess some people can think that this can help in some way, at least in reducing these negative um, consequences.
Absolutely. I think that you are touching in a very important point, and in fact, I should say that MELiSSA, the full consortium of MELiSSA and the European Space Agency, are fully aligned in that direction, and we have even a program called Semilla, which, if you notice, are MELiSSA words but in a different order, but the Sevilla, it has in Spanish, the meaning is of a seed. And all this Semilla program is in fact developing a number of terrestrial applications of the concept we are trying to develop for space. Yeah, ESA in a way is uh, following and interested in the space application, but also very open and very interested that we find additional partners for the terrestrial applications. And there is where it comes the fact that the MELiSSA concept that was already proposed late in 1988, was already proposing a circular system. Because if you look at the first drawing of MELiSSA, it describes a loop system, the MELiSSA loop, where you end up by in a way, in a one side, using the wastes generated by the crew, then transforming them in a number of intermediate steps, and at the end, synthesizing new edible material, uh, refueling oxygen to respiration, recovering water, etc. So that precise concept can be applied to uh, several locations in on Earth where there is, well, in fact, you could do it everywhere, because at the end, in many of our activities, we do need to save water and reuse it. We do need to control our CO2 emissions, so then reuse them, provide oxygen via photosynthesis, uh, treat our wastes as resources, so decrease wastes, reuse them, etc. And we have found already a number of applications where this is done. Yeah, just to put you one single example, there is now a building in Paris that is under construction. This building is an office building. Will have nitrification of urine from toilets. It will have capture of CO2 with microalgae and plants, generation of oxygen, a little bit like, if you want, more holistic environmental approach of the building. And this, I think, it's very important. The building will have a green facade looking at the south orientation. And I think that what is relevant of this type of buildings, on top that you can always design them and present them in a way that they have a more neutral footpath on environment, but also I think they have also a relevance in terms of what message this building sending to the general public that watch that building from street, or to those who are working inside that building, no? And I think that we do need more and more this kind of calls to the fact that we are getting too late in acting in terms of global warming and climate change. So yeah, your answer is certainly yes, and there is many applications that we are trying to generate out of the MELiSSA project. Of course, you will end up with a different sort of sizing, instrumentation, wherever. I mean, it's more complex for our application in space, because there we need a lot of redundancies, etc. We are very far away from Earth, so it's the pressure on the system is very different when you are thinking on a Mars base, or you are thinking in an Earth, say, hotel area, whatever, building, so on and so forth. But still, we need to do all these adaptations. What is common to the two systems is the overall way that, and what we try to we like to define it as this system engineering approach that we are following in MELiSSA. And I think that this is an expertise that the MELiSSA Consortium has developed, not only, being expert in one given part of the complete loop, but having this expertise to operate the complete loop together with all the different functions that they affect one to each other. Yeah, and this system approach, I think, is very specific for MELiSSA and what we have developing in the last decades.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you so much, Francesc, for this interview. It has been really, really interesting, and I'm sure all of our followers will love it.
Okay, thank you for your attention, and my pleasure.